What's up, Make Pop Music? It's Austin here from Make Pop Music and Austin Hall Audio, and we are back with another video. And for this week, we actually put a poll on the Instagram to see which video you guys would rather see. And the options were how to write vocals over an instrumental, or my story on how I became a professional producer, plus kind of tips and tricks that you can use. And they were super, super close. Actually, the how to write vocals video won by a small margin, but my voice is a little hoarse today, and I want to save you all the pain of listening to me, you know, just trying to sing and mumble and hum when I sound like this. So we're going to do that video next week. And so I figured this week we'll take it easy. We'll do how I became a professional producer. I'll kind of give you guys my full backstory, kind of tell you exactly where I came from and how I got to where I am. And then I'll also go ahead and give you some tips and tricks that you can use if you're looking to kind of go full-time, or if you've just transitioned into full-time and you're looking for a little bit better balance between kind of work and life and keeping everything sustainable. So it's going to be a fun video. This will be one that you can kind of just turn on in the background, more like a podcast. You don't really have to like stay watching it. But before we hop into my full story, I did just want to make a quick announcement that today is the last day that you can get our brand new pack, The Wave, for 20% off, and it's the last day that you can get the free bundle of serum presets. It's also coming with it. So the pack in itself is going to stay on our website forever. It's just going back up to the list price today, and the pack includes 107 serum presets and over 150 drum samples and loops. But if you get it by the end of today, you save 20% and you get an extra little bundle of free serum presets that we're never going to give away or release again. So if you want, that offer does end today, Friday, July 16th. So go to the website and check it out. All right, now that the shameless plug is done, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about my kind of story, how I became a professional producer, how I kind of have maintained being full-time, and then how I balance me taking projects with what I do for Make Pop Music. I guess we can just go ahead and start at the absolute beginning. I loved music growing up. I was always around music. Like, some of my earliest memories are listening to records or cassette tapes and just running around doing like karaoke as a kid, playing air guitar, banging on pots and pans. I just always loved music. I've always had like kind of an obsession with it. And I started playing guitar at a really young age with my dad. And then when I turned 9, I used my birthday money and bought my own guitar. And from there, I was kind of hooked. I played guitar for years, and I practiced like every day. I swear to God, I was a better guitar player at like 11 years old than I am now, because it was just all I ever did. So I played guitar for a few years, and then when I was 14, I finally got kind of a digital keyboard, and I started learning how to play keys and synths and stuff like that, and I was really starting to get into writing songs and kind of putting melodies and lyrics together with, you know, chords and kind of small arrangements. So that was kind of my intro into like songwriting and really putting things together past just like little covers or riffs that I had done in the past. And then when I was 16, we had a local metal band that a bunch of my friends had started, and they needed a singer. So I figured, why not try out? So at 16, I started singing with them. We would go play shows every weekend. We released like an EP. We did a couple other singles, and that was like my first time ever really writing with a group of people, hitting a recording studio, playing live, and I just really, really loved it. Up to that point, I had kind of played drums a little bit growing up. I had played a lot of guitar and I had played a little bit of keys, so I was pretty familiar with all of the elements, but this was the first time I was ever hearing ideas fully come together. And we ended up actually needing to do some demos because we just didn't have the money to hit the studio every couple weeks and record you know, demo ideas. We would definitely go to record the finals, but we wanted to be able to kind of have writing demos and work demos as we kind of put together a big body of work. So around like 17, I had downloaded Mixcraft, which was like 50 or 60 bucks. I'd gotten a cheap little interface and a cheap little microphone, and we would kind of run my Line 6 Spider guitar amp into the headphone input of a computer with literally like an aux cable, and me and my friends would basically just like stay up all night, slam a bunch of monsters, write as many ideas as we possibly could. And that was where I just kind of fell in love with the recording process. This is like the first time I was able to take exactly what I was hearing in my head and put it down in some way, shape, or form. And this is all happening when I'm like 17 going on 18, and eventually, like, I knew that I was going to have to quit the band because my wife and I were about to go off to college, and I just knew that the band was going to be no more. So I just started writing and recording and producing a ton of stuff for myself. I would basically work on a song pretty much every day in senior year of high school and freshman year of college. And at the time, I was still working a lot on rock and metal, so it was just all the time making as many ideas as I possibly could. And since I grew up playing multiple instruments, it was really nice because I was able to not have to get a band to agree for the first time. So that was like a really nice introduction on collaborating with people. So that was the first time that I was able to really get it out of my head and not have to kind of compromise on anything with a band or with our audience or anything like that. So freshman year of college, I was in school for English education, and I was just making a ton of music on the side. I was working at a bookstore making pretty much minimum wage, and then my wife was also a full-time student and working a full-time job at the mall. So we were both really, really busy. whenever I was at home alone, I wasn't big on studying. I would like fly through my homework or my at-home assignments, and then I would literally just spend every other waking minute making music if she wasn't home. So if she was home, I wanted to spend as much time with my new wife as possible. If she wasn't home, then I didn't watch TV, I didn't watch movies, I really didn't do anything like that. I would just knock out 2 or 3 tracks, she'd come home, I'd show her, and eventually, like, your skills just start to develop once you're just making so much music. So I guess I'm kind of going to interlace tips throughout this story, but that would be my first tip. Is I see so many people asking how they can go full-time or how they can get paying clients, and they've never even done like a full production. They've never done anything that's been released. They're just like kind of putting together little ideas. You really just have to make as much music as possible. By the time I even got offered my first paying client, I had probably made 80 to 100 different like full productions that I just never released, that I would just host on like a SoundCloud, or I would just send out to friends or post in metal forums and metal groups. So that was my intro into actually getting the production started, and eventually people from my hometown started wanting me to help them with their production and their writing remotely. So at this time I was in Boca Raton. The band that I was from Pensacola, so we were just, you know, kind of working on things from a distance. They would send me stuff to mix, they'd kind of take my production ideas and I'd send stems, and that was my first time ever really working with people that were paying me for my services. And I never really marketed myself to them. I never really tried to get their business. It was more so just like they wanted me to do something and I didn't have the time, so they made the time by paying me to do it. So this is all happening in about 2013, 2014. That's when I really got my basis around working in a DAW, taking on a couple, you know, paying clients here and there, and really just making a ton of music. But I was still in college and I was still working at the bookstore, so at that point it was just side income. And then I started to just get a little bored and a little burnt out of metal music at the kind of, you know, early to mid 2014. I knew that there were just only so many metal demos that I could write. It was just not a genre that I really could see myself ever growing in at that point. So I started to kind of transition, and I was starting to do more kind of electronic and R&B stuff, and I was kind of wanting to do more pop stuff. But at the time, there were no communities, there were no Facebook groups, there weren't any YouTube channels or anything like that to learn pop music. There were a ton for metal music. Like we had multiple groups on Facebook, multiple YouTube channels that would touch on it, tons of companies selling like presets and samples and stuff like that, but nothing for pop. And at the time, I didn't really want to make that because I was not an authority figure at all. I had never even made a pop track. But what I did want to do was kind of get my feet wet in pop production. So I started working on projects for myself that I could kind of release as a solo artist, which would be nice because it would be the first official release since I was in a band in high school. And then I also met my current best friend, Grayson. I met him at Barnes & Noble when I was working there, and he was interested in starting to kind of make some pop music and release that. So I basically told him one day when I was working with him, I was like, yeah, just come over one night, we'll order a pizza, we'll write as many songs as possible. And so I worked with Grayson, we worked on a few tracks. He ended up releasing a couple of them, and then I had ended up releasing a couple of my own. So this is all happening in kind of late 2014, first half of 2015. I was just working on as much pop stuff as I could for myself and for Grayson and for, you know, a couple other little friends here and there. None of it was really paid. It was all just to kind of get my feet wet. But at this time, I kind of missed the community aspect that I had in the metal scene, where there was a Facebook group that you could post a work in progress and kind of get feedback on, or there were, you know, peers that you could kind of shoot ideas from and collaborate with, because that just really didn't exist, or at least not that I could find in pop. So I made a little Facebook group and basically invited a bunch of people who were interested in pop, and then they invited people, and then they invited people, and that's what ended up becoming Make Pop Music. But at the time, it was literally just a free Facebook group where people could share ideas. There were no YouTube videos, there were no sample packs, no courses, no nothing like that. It was legitimately just a forum and a community for people to share tips and tricks that they find, or sample packs that they like that other people can buy, or kind of get feedback on whatever they were working on. So that happened in August of 2015, and then once that group started, we started getting a ton of people in there. I think within like the first couple months, we had like 2,000 or 3,000 members. And within that, there were producers that were kind of helping me learn. There were producers that were learning from me and from other people. And then there were also artists who were looking for producers. So I was starting to get project inquiries more often from the Facebook group because people would see things that I was working on. So I was never really promoting myself. I was more so just posting my stuff to get feedback on and tips on, and eventually, I guess artists just caught on to that, liked it, and then started wanting to hire me. So this is when I started kind of taking sporadic paid mixing or production jobs for pop music. This is like late 2015 into early 2016, and then in April of 2016, that's when everything kind of changed for me. That's when I realized, I think I want to go full-time. My wife had really convinced me to try going full-time because at this time I was only working at a bookstore. I had like one more year of college left before I was going to get out and go teach high school English. And she was like, Austin, you're not going to have to make a ton of money doing this. You if you ever want to try, now is the time, because we were college kids living off of scholarships, and then the money that we made at work was kind of just side money and just kind of gave us a little bit of spending money. So I said, you know what, yeah, let's do it. So April of 2016, I decided that I was going to try going full time, pretty much at her full discretion. She was like, just try it. If it doesn't work for a couple months, we can afford it, and then you just go right back to your job. So I said, screw it, why not? And so my first month, since I had time to work on tons of stuff, I was doing production, I was doing mixing, and at the time I was even doing a little bit of graphic design and logo design and stuff like that. So for the first month, I got in a few mixes, I got into production, and I got in a couple different logos and stuff like that, because I was able to post constantly, I was able to network with people, and in that first month, I think I ended up making like $3,500 or $3,600, which was almost triple what I was making at the bookstore. From that month on, I was like, okay, if every month is like this, I'll make, 40 or 50 grand this year. And luckily, I thought it was going to die down, but everything just kind of started snowballing. So after that first month, I really saw the potential of being full-time and taking the time to communicate with people and taking the time to take on more projects and just work on as much music as possible. So I got super lucky, I was super fortunate, and the group was kind of there as a backbone of that, but none of it was ever centered around like marketing or trying to get paying clients or anything like that. It all just kind of happened at the right time, and I think because I had been working on music for so long, I was able to actually handle the projects whenever they were ready to start paying. After my first month of working on projects and stuff like that, I thought it was super fun. People on the group were wanting to start having sounds for me, just because I had been posting so much of what I was doing in there over the past couple months, working for myself, working with Grayson, and then starting to work on other kind of paying clients. So people basically demanded that I did some kind of sample pack. So in May, I released the first sample pack. It wasn't under Make Pop Music, it was under another thing called Pop Shop. The pack is still on our site, we just ended up rebranding it, and it's the Chart Topper pack. So if you ever go to our website, Chart Topper was the first thing that I ever did, and I think in the first month of me selling that pack, it ended up selling, I think it was like 20 bucks, and it sold like 100 copies. So it ended up doing like $2,000, which at the time was nuts to me. It was super passive. I made the pack one time. I used the pack all the time myself. So to me, it was almost just like free money, and that was on the side of me doing all of the kind of client work and work for myself and work for my friends and peers. So I kept doing that for a couple months, just kept working on as much music as possible, taking as many clients as possible, and I made one more sample pack. And then by October of 2016, our friend Daniel Grimmett of the channel actually hit me up. At the time, we weren't Make Pop Music, we were pretty unbranded, and it was kind of just like me doing whatever I could to kind of like keep the community active and kind of, make sure that I was releasing as much stuff as possible. So Daniel came over to me with the idea for us to kind of merge our companies. At the time, he was running Woodshed Audio and Songwriting Team. And so we basically did a merge, and that kind of existed for a couple years. So once I merged with Daniel, we rebranded the group as Make Pop Music. We kind of started creating a YouTube channel that was centered around Make Pop Music. And then we started kind of working a little bit more on product development. So I was doing a couple more sample packs. I started doing some course material, and that basically went on from like the end of 2016 all the way up to like 2018. So within that time, I was taking on a ton of projects. I was taking on anywhere between like 20 and 30 projects a month. And then in 2017, I think I ended up working with like 200 projects. And then in 2018, I ended up working on like close to 300 projects. And all at this time, I was partnered with Daniel. We were doing Make Pop Music. I was doing my stuff as Austin Hall Audio Visual. And I'd kind of transitioned out of doing any visual stuff. So it was just becoming more songwriting, production, and mixing and mastering. And then eventually, we just realized that Daniel wanted to go a different route. He wanted to go the kind of consulting route, and I wanted to go really, really focused on like the education route on YouTube, and then just really, really focused on my personal production stuff. So around like October to November, December of 2018, we started to kind of phase that out. And at the time in 2018, me and my wife had moved to Orlando from South Florida, so she was going to come work full-time with me. She went to school for marketing. She had a job in marketing for like a year right before, after she graduated, before we moved. And so when we moved to Orlando, I knew Make Pop Music was making some money with the sample packs and the courses and the YouTube channel. And I was making really solid money with the production, and I was starting to need help with editing the video content, managing projects, and honestly just like keeping the whole thing afloat, because I was starting to get overwhelmed. So in October of 2018, my wife Miranda started working with me full time, and now she basically runs Make Pop Music. The only thing I really do for it is kind of make the packs and then make these videos. But anything that gets uploaded, any email that gets sent, all of that kind of stuff, she handles, and that all started in 2018. And so October, November, December of 2018, we were just kind of transitioning from Daniel being my partner to Miranda being my partner, and you know what? It worked out really, really well. Daniel's super happy. He's doing really well with his stuff. We're super happy and we're doing really, really well with our stuff. And that's kind of where the amalgamation of like Make Pop Music as you know it right now really, really started. So in January of 2019, we made a brand new website with me and my wife kind of running everything. And then at that point, we were like, okay, we really want to start uploading steady content, because by this point, I had been full-time for a couple years. I had done a ton of projects. I actually felt like I had some insight to consistently tell people. And to be honest, the audience on our Facebook group was kind of demanding it. They were just wanting to see how I mix vocals. They were wanting to see how I produce this song. And so I thought, you know what? They're asking for it. I'll do it. I went to school for education anyway, so why not kind of use that degree? So in January of 2019, we launched our new site. We did a tutorial on how to make an Ariana Grande style song, and that video popped off massively, literally the same week that our website launched. And so those two things kind of came together and really propelled the next kind of year and a half for Make Pop Music. So along 2019, I was still working on a massive amount of production projects and mixing projects. We were doing a video pretty much every week, and we were having sample sales come in literally every single day. So I had super passive income from Make Pop Music. I had super consistent income from my production work, and my wife works full-time with me. So we basically just had household income. We weren't like splitting it, nothing like that. So it was super easy to keep track of. And so through 2019 and 2020, honestly, not too much changed. It's just been growing, releasing sample packs and courses a couple times a year, making as many free videos on the channel as possible, keeping the Facebook group light and active and fun. And then other than that, I'm just working on a ton of projects. I pretty much specialize in taking like smaller independent artists, and I do work for hire agreements normally. So I very rarely rely on back end. I'm normally getting paid up front at the front of the project, and I'm normally not working too much with like labels and publishers and stuff like that. I will take some of those projects if it feels right or if I have the time to do spec work, but so far in my career, that hasn't really been my goal. It's really just been kind of being my own boss. I've gotten offered publishing contracts and I've gotten offered a couple different deals, and they just didn't feel right because I was either gonna have a boss or I was gonna make less money than I currently made and have less freedom. So at the moment, you know, if anybody's wondering kind of where we're at now, Make Pop Music is basically self-sustaining. Miranda runs everything. I just kind of make the videos and then the other kind of content. And then I do take a ton of production and mixing clients. And over the years, I've just had to up my rates to kind of compensate for just lack of time, because eventually, and if you go full-time, you'll kind of find this out really quickly. When you start getting too booked up and you don't really have time, that's when you need to raise your rates, because at that time, you've basically topped out your potential. So I knew that when I was topping out my work week, whenever I was just mentally exhausted, it was time to up my rates. So that has pretty much been my entire journey from birth, loving music, all the way up to now, to where I run two businesses with my wife. We make really, really solid income. We're both super happy. We're really, really fortunate. And, you know, hopefully this just kind of pulled back the curtain on how long of a process it tends to be to go, you know, full-time or become a professional producer. I was just making a ton of music for years and made no money off of it, and I was totally fine with that. I honestly never even fully meant to be a professional producer. It just all ended up lining up. I was totally happy going to school, getting a degree in education, coming out, making $40,000 a year, going and teaching in the classroom every day. I was totally fine with that. But things just lined up really, really well. I had the drive, I had the skill set, and I had the kind of connections and resources to where it just came together to form a very comfortable career for me and my wife. But with all that said, if you have any questions about my kind of path or my journey or how I handle things, let me know in the comments below, because I can definitely answer all of that. I know this has been super general. If you want a much more long, drawn out, detailed timeline, I'll post a link in the comments below where I've been on a couple different podcasts and talked a lot about my business model, how I got started, how I came up, kind of what my secret production sauce is, how I handle projects. So there will be a link to a playlist down there. But before we do that, I do just want to give a couple different tips and tricks. So this video is not just a full story time. So let's go ahead and hop into those. All right, so a couple tips that I have for people who are interested in going full time is make sure that that is not your number one concern. I see so many people way too obsessed with getting the money out of the production and trying to make it a career before they even really have a portfolio, or before they even really know how to move around a DAW, how to make enough, you know, different styles of songs. And one of my things that I think I see too much is people just really, really, really want the career now. So you have to be okay with putting in time over a few years where you're just loving the process, you're loving learning, you're loving connecting with people, and eventually people will offer to start paying you, and one client turns into 10, 10 turns into 100, 100 turns into 1,000. And there really is no shortcut. Take the long approach. I promise you it will be worth it as long as you kind of put in the time and you just have the raw kind of baseline talent. My second tip for people wanting to go full-time is kind of diversify. I think that if you're so focused on just producing or mixing in one genre, it's going to be really hard for you to get enough clientele to kind of sustain that as income. So when I started, I was doing rock, I was doing metal, I was doing pop, I was doing R&B, I was doing production, mixing, mastering, songwriting. I was also doing graphic design, and I had the sample packs on the side. So yeah, if, you know, we have a blog post actually on our website. I'll also link a bunch of blog posts that kind of talk about all this businessy stuff. But we have a blog post that's basically how to realistically make $50,000 a year as a producer. And in that, I kind of talk about diversifying, because if I wanted to literally only produce one genre, it would have taken me forever to have my first $50,000 a year. But since I was able to work in multiple genres, doing multiple different styles and multiple different aspects of a project, it came super fast because I was always able to find somebody who needed help in one of those different aspects. And then my third tip is going to be just legitimately try to make friends and network with people. It never feels good when you hit up an artist and they can immediately tell that you're just trying to, you know, scope them out to end up hiring you for a project. Literally almost all of my clients up until maybe the past year or two were people that I had formed long-lasting relationships with. They were people that I talked to every day or every week at the absolute least. And it was people that I had helped on the group, or that had answered my questions on the group, or people who I had, you know, told them that I liked their previous releases. It all came from just genuine connection. I was never out there trying to, you know, scalp clients or, you know, kind of plant seeds with artists. I guess it did plant the seeds, but it was super passive, and it wasn't, you know, it wasn't like full on. Like I never wanted to be that kind of person who needed to like market my skills and really pull people in. I just wanted to kind of attract people where if they liked what I was doing and I liked what they were doing, we could end up working together and figuring something out. So I think if you're able to kind of work on that attraction rather than marketing to them, it ends up just being a bit more sustainable. It ends up taking a lot less effort and a lot less overhead to maintain. And those projects end up becoming return projects where it's not just somebody who needs a mix one time. They might get a mix done every month for an entire year, and in which case, you know, that $300 ended up turning into almost $4,000. So just make those long-lasting relationships, because those are the projects that really will be beneficial for you kind of building up to either being full-time, or if you're full-time, they'll be really beneficial for you to just kind of rev up that portfolio and increase your rates. All right, and then real quickly before we go, I am going to give a couple different tips to people who might already be full-time but are having trouble balancing, because we didn't really talk about it too much in this video, but I have touched on it in the past. One of the things that I did in 2018, 2019, and the first half of 2020 were just grossly overwork myself. I was having mental health issues. I was tired. I was exhausted. I wasn't able to put 110% into every project that I was doing, and a lot of that just came from me working way too much. I thought it was really cool to work 60 hours a week and work on 300 projects a year and also have make pop music going. And after a little while, it literally just depleted me of all of my energy, all of my creativity. So now I'm definitely more focused on taking less but doing more. So I've kind of upped my rates. I have been a little bit more selective with who I'll work with and when I'll work with them. And other than that, I'm just taking projects that I genuinely feel really good about. So if you are full-time, definitely remember, take your breaks, take your off days. Not everything needs to be work, work, work all the time. And if you're finding that you're too busy, increase those rates so you can kind of respect your own time and just kind of get to that next level where you're wanting to go. My second tip for people that are just going full-time or that are still pretty early in their career is still try to network with people and try to help people. There's a lot of people that still want to be where you're at. Even if you just got your first client, there's people that will want to know how to get that. And it's a lot easier for people at that level to connect with you rather than going up to somebody like Max Martin, who's had a publishing deal now for 25 years and has really no touch on reality of what it's like to kind of be an up-and-coming producer at the moment. So one of my things has always been, and I've tried to be really honest on the channel about where I am and where I'm at and where I've been and kind of where I'm going, is that I know that I'm not the most skilled at the moment. I know that I have not worked with the biggest projects, but that's not what's important to me. What's important is that I'm honest about where I'm at, and anybody who's at a similar level or maybe at a lower level can get kind of information that they need to kind of work their way up. Doing that just really helps build your name, it helps build your brand, and it just kind of builds good karma. So I think people really start to see that as long as you're honest, as long as you don't position it as like a weird kind of slimy sales tactic. I think it really, really works out well when no matter what level you're at, you're able to help people that kind of need some help, and you might have a little bit of insight for that. But I think that's gonna do it. I know I have been rambling a ton for this video. If you've watched up to this point, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you want, there are a couple links down below. So we've got the blog post. I'm gonna also link a free ebook that we did called The Fundamentals of Freelancing, where I basically go over like writing contracts, kind of onboarding clients, stuff like that. And then I'll also kind of link a couple different resources that you can use. Other than that, if you wanna go get our brand new sample pack, The Wave, it is on our website right now. Again, today, July 16th, is the last day to go get that for 20% off and get that extra little bundle of CRM presets that we did include for the first week. But that's gonna do it for this video. Again, if you'll have any questions at all, let me know in the comments below and I'll answer whatever I can. Other than that, I'll see you guys next week for the top line video. Much love, everyone. Peace out.